School boards are finally revising or repealing the zero-tolerance policies they adopted at the urging of Nancy and Ronald Reagan. Remember the Reagans? He was such an uninvolved parent that he famously didn't recognize his own grown son when they were standing face to face. Nancy's response to the problem of unwanted teenage pregnancies was to urge young people not to have sex, even though her marriage to Ron years earlier was widely reported to have been timed so that she could avoid giving birth to his child out of wedlock. Together, Ron and Nancy's answer to the AIDS crisis was to pretend it didn't exist. It would be hard to find a couple that was less in touch with what was going on in the personal lives of Americans than the Reagans. Yet, school boards all across the country followed their advice and put inflexible policies in place that required the expulsion of students who had drugs or alcohol or other contraband, no matter how inappropriate such severe penalties were for particular kids. A few years ago, I met one of the early victims of a zero-tolerance policy shortly after he was expelled from high school. His hopes of going on to college on an athletic scholarship were crushed. The zero-tolerance policy didn't help him. It did him great harm. The school officials seemed to think it was a good idea to sacrifice his life to make him an example for others. Since then, countless children have been severely penalized for everything from drinking beer at a weekend party to carrying a plastic squirt gun. Teachers, parents, social workers, and school counselors have all been complaining about these draconian zero-tolerance policies for years. Now the pendulum has started to swing a little more towards center. Schools are deciding to take the time and trouble to evaluate each kid's offense on an individual basis, in context, and to try to craft punishments that make sense. Schools are starting to do what they have always told kids to do, which is to think rather than just react. So what about all those kids who were expelled under the now rejected zero-tolerance policies? Will the schools retroactively clear the records? Will the schools apologize for acting so mercilessly? Will the kids who were denied diplomas receive them? Will kids who lost scholarships be compensated? Probably not. Because although school board policies may come and go, the basic rule that adults are in charge and kids are at their mercy is immutable. Because the most important lesson any government, including school boards, want to teach their constituents is who is the boss. Because, as parents love to say, life isn't fair. So why even try to make it fair?